Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Mindset podcast with me, your host, Michelle Walter. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Siobhan Bent, and she is the CEO of Mortgages for Moms, and she's also the co-founder of Circle of Black Girls CEO, a really cool group that I'm a part of. And she's also a financial life coach. So, welcome, Siobhan. Welcome, welcome.
Welcome, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm so happy I got to get a hold of you so we could pick your brain about some things that us mothers, widows,
hmm
women need to empower
Absolutely.
our lives. So I'm really happy that I have you here today.
Oh, I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
All right. So
Dusting off my mic today.
first thing I want to know from you is what share the story behind Mortgages for Moms. Like, what inspired you to focus on assisting mothers in the mortgage
hmm
process?
hmm Well, there's a preface to that. So the mortgages for moms came after I had my son. I've been a mortgage broker for this year's 24 years. I've been in the industry over 20 years. And how I actually got into the industry was highly influenced by my relationship with my mom. So I'm the eldest of three children, and my mom had me at a very young age. So I kind of grew up with her.
Yes.
And in seeing how, she struggled to make sure that we were provided for while also trying to make sure that she was okay, to me, that seemed like, I'm not sure that's how I wanted to really journey through life. And so I was always open to other ways of making money and just being more in control of how I did things. And so I entered into entrepreneurship long before I even realized that that's what that was. I started my own business at the age of 13. I was a hairdresser
Wow.
the neighborhood, doing everyone's hair, but I didn't even know that that's what I was doing. Like I was running a business out of the basement of our home. But then years later, I decided it was time for me to move and to just kind of like become an independent woman and activate all the things that my mom had instilled in me. And when I got to the point of making the decision, what was that? Where was I going to go? Was I going to become a renter and pay someone else, or was I going to purchase a property and pay myself? And now I didn't have any back knowledge of ownership or even the mortgage industry because we grew up in housing, right?
Right.
But I just ultimately decided that, I think I wanted to pay myself first. And so that's how I actually was introduced to real estate. And it was a couple years later that, after, working to pay my bills, because that's what I had to do, I
Hmm.
was introduced to a mortgage broker who was ready to build her team. And I was like, you know what? Um, I know what real estate is about now. I know that this is something that I can get a return on for myself. Why not go into the industry and help others? And so I became an agent, and my mom was my first official client. I helped her to buy her first home.
Oh, wow.
And, she still has that home to this day. But
Right.
it was after about 10 years later, I had my own son. And it was no longer just about doing the act of mortgages, so to speak, to help people buy a home. It was really about changing the trajectory of my own life, but also, and more importantly, I think for my son's life.
Right.
And so while I knew that I had assisted my mom in moving from, housing into ownership, it didn't really connect. And so I was like, wow, this is actually something that is generational forward, right?
Yes.
And so the Mortgages for Moms community was evolved out of my realization that I had work to do, not only for myself, but other mothers like my mom and like myself. And so the
Right.
community is really focused on the educational part of it because growing up in Ontario, going to school, I never had a money class. I never had
Me
any
neither.
education
Me
on
neither.
what to do with a paycheck, right? And I was
Yep.
like, that's unheard of, and like that's very unfair.
It's
And so
crazy, and you know what? It's still not a curricular part of the curricular in schools today. Still
abs
is not.
today, it's
Yeah.
been in the talks for the last 20 years, right?
Oh, that's crazy.
Um, so, and this is where social media comes in because when I started, the conversation wasn't being had. It was literally, if I was sitting at the desk with you, but now, the information is readily available.
Hmm.
um, a lot of information, which can sometimes be overwhelming for some. Um, but just really being able to just give moms another perspective of how they can truly change their financial life for themselves as well as for their children is where Mortgages for Moms comes in.
Awesome. That's awesome. So, okay, so what are some of the common challenges that mothers face when they're seeking mortgages, and how do you help them overcome them?
hmm I think it goes back to education, right? Ownership is, again, is not something that had been and let me speak to my own community, right? It's never been something that's been at the forefront of aspiration of goals and changing generations. It was really about just owning a home to live in,
Yeah.
right? It's like, okay, well, I don't rent, but I own. And so the expansion of the education about understanding what the power of real estate is that where mortgages come in. Mortgages are a leveraging tool, right? And this is how the wealthy get wealthy. They leverage OPM, other people's money, to create generational wealth for their families. And so the challenge is what moms don't understand is like, although it's a large debt, when you are accepting a debt like that, you have to do it with a plan, right? It's not about just taking a mortgage and then just living in the property to pay the mortgage, right? That's essentially like renting. You're renting from yourself.
Right.
But knowing that when you do accept a mortgage, understanding that all products are not created equally, and that when you are investing into a mortgage, because you are investing, that you have to be mindful of life as well. So a lot of times people get hooked on the shiny object about a mortgage, oh, the lowest rate, or you know, um, just because I want a house, I'll just take it, even though my credit isn't okay, I'll pay the higher price. So it's really about getting the understanding of what you're actually embarking on, and it's not just for today, it's for the long term. And so where I come in is really just making sure that when I'm having conversations with moms that they're taking into account their life today, but also the life, 3 years from now, 5 years
Yeah.
from now. Because if you have children, and when you have children, you also have to factor in, education, post secondary, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of times that's not the conversation. So just making sure I'm expanding that holistic conversation with moms about the product itself, but what the product should be used for. It's a
Yeah.
stepping tool. It's a leveraging tool.
Because sometimes as a single mom, you just need somebody to open your eyes to a different perspective of something. Sometimes
Absolutely.
it's like we have blinders on and we can't really see
hmm
past the blinders, and we need somebody else to kind of remove them and show us what is actually
Absolutely.
possible. Okay, so
What is
question
possible.
for you.
hmm
Good debt, bad debt. Is there such thing as good debt?
It depends on who you're listening to, but absolutely, as I said, would be considered a good debt. Anything that you can invest in that is going to give you a return on that. So
Okay.
although mortgages are big, it's usually the largest debt that any one person is going to carry.
Right.
And so when you're getting a mortgage, you're getting access to a tangible asset. So this is why understanding the type of product that you are embarking on or contracting yourself to is key, because it has to be a part of a strategy, right? So when you do get a mortgage, yeah, you're buying an investment, you're buying a property, you're buying a home that you want to make sure that it's in a marketable area, that there is the ability for it to appreciate, whether it's, super fast like it does in our or I'm not sure what part of the city are you were.
I'm in Waterloo actually now. I used to be in Milton.
Okay.
Yeah, when I joined the
Okay.
circle, I was in Milton, but I've recently moved to
Now
Waterloo.
you're in Waterloo. Okay. So in
Yeah.
the greater Toronto area, our appreciation values, are a lot faster than, on the surrounding areas.
Yes.
But when you are investing in a property, you have to factor in those things, because the goal is never to just get a mortgage and to hold it for 25 years, right?
No,
The goal
no.
is to use a mortgage to buy a property that's going to appreciate faster than you having savings in a bank account,
Right.
so that you can then rinse and repeat. You can then leverage that property, buy another property.
Right.
Um, so I think, again, going always back to education and understanding what your life goals are and comparing that with the investment that you're going to take which is what makes a mortgage a good debt. Bad debt is what the banks are pushing on you. You know,
Yeah.
those increased limits, those credit cards for
Credit
19 and
cards. Yes.
21%, right?
Yes.
That have you trapped in a debt cycle that without a vision or a plan on how to get out of, right? At least with a mortgage, you know, if you have it for 5 years, if you have it for 10 years, or even if you have it for the full 25 years, you know that there's an end date. Whereas bad debt, consumer debt, there's no end date. And
Hmm.
so people continuously end up having to live off of credit because one, we know that the economy is going through and has been for a long time. It does
Yeah.
the economy doesn't support incomes to increase, but they do support debt to increase,
Debt
right? So
increase.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of moving factors, but good debt, you want to make sure that you're going into something that is going to give you the ability to pay that off with profit versus a consumer debt that it doesn't necessarily do that for you.
Hmm. Okay. Good. This is
I
good
hope that was clear.
information for the listeners. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so as a professional and a mother yourself, how do you balance? Um, how do you manage the balance between work and personal life? And what advice do you have for other mothers who are striving to balance their careers and their family
Mhm.
responsibilities?
So if I'm honest, I don't even believe in the word balance. Although I've only been a mom for 12 years
Right.
and a business owner for much longer, which I think equates to having another child. I don't
Sure
think it's
does.
possible to achieve the idea of balance. When I think of balance, I think, the diagram where it's
50-50, the
like
scale.
50-50, right? The
Yeah,
scale, that's what it is, the scale. That is impossible to achieve 50-50 between business and like it just doesn't I can't wrap my head around it. So if there is a woman out there that knows how to do it, please give me some insight,
give me
right?
some
But
insight.
what I
Yeah.
try to do, what I focus on doing is being present in the moment of whatever it is that I'm doing. And so that gives me, I would say, a balanced feeling, right? Knowing that I am showing up 100% in my role as a mom at the time when I'm doing so, or if
Yeah.
I'm working on my business, I'm showing up 100% as an entrepreneur. Because again, I think the balance idea is really just a myth or a false story or false narrative that people are trying to tap into that doesn't really exist. So when you
Mhm.
just, well, for me, when I've decided to just commit to myself in whatever I'm doing at that time, because I can't do it all. And
Nope,
if I
you
try to
cannot.
do it all, something is going to
Burnout,
fall through the cracks.
burnout,
Exactly, right? And
burnout.
so, yeah, balance is not what I would strive for. So anyone listening, I would say, throw that idea of balance out the door and just prioritize, right? When you're operating as a mom, operate as a mom. When you're operating as a space as a woman, operate as a
Businesswoman.
space as a woman. Yeah. Or a businesswoman. Like, give yourself dedicated times. Of course, things will overlap, but trying to
I
achieve the
agree.
idea of balance will keep you spinning
I
and
agree. I
and
totally
ultimately.
agree with that. And I would even go as further to add that when it's your time off,
Hmm.
it should be time off.
Absolutely.
So that means put the phone away and don't be checking the computers. You don't need to check email if it's time off, even if it's an hour.
Yeah.
That
Hmm.
60 minutes is for you and it should not involve anything else. The mom, the work, the CEO, none of those
Yeah,
things. It's
I
time off.
agree.
Yeah,
That's
because a
something
lot of
that I
times we
literally.
say
Mhm.
it's time off and then we find ourselves checking the phone, checking
For
the
sure.
email,
For sure.
checking to
And I
see.
actually had to teach myself that through the pandemic. It
Yes.
wasn't until we were shut down and we're
Yes.
supposed to be still that I'm just like, whoa, what's happening here, right?
What do
And
I
so
do with
that's where like I
myself?
start, what do I do with myself? Or I'm doing too much. And so I literally had to carve out time and pack my son up and send him to his dad and be like,
Mhm.
this is my time. Like
That's
I'm not
right.
doing nothing. If I don't want to do laundry, I'm not doing laundry. The dishes ain't going anywhere if they need to be washed. I would just give myself time to rest. So that
Yes.
is a
Yeah.
learned behavior that I've implemented.
That's great advice. Great advice.
Hmm.
Okay, so you have hosted seminars like First Time Home Buyer Seminar.
Hmm.
What motivated you to start these educational events and what impact have they had on your community?
Mm. So it's kind of twofold. So I understand that education is powerful when making decisions about investing in real estate. or even just learning how to invest your money. Um, but again, going back to us as a community, me as a community, not having that access to the education. And so sometimes when you are listening to people on a screen, it makes the difference between talking to you on a screen and talking to you face to face and being able to give feedback and to have the ability to ask questions, particularly to you.
Right.
I find that it's easier to implement and take action on. So I've done, I've grown a large community online, but when you're in the room with people who are have aspirations to actually do something different, I find the transformation a lot greater. And so, prior to COVID, I did a lot more in person, and of course we had to adapt to just doing virtual. And so I've managed to still have the great impact virtually, but there's something different with being in the room and having access to the people who want to just pull you aside and say XYZ, because talking about finances, that's very personal. People are very
Hmm.
reluctant sometimes to really speak in open spaces about their finances. So I think building the community and having access to them in spaces that are dedicated to what they actually need at that time, allows for them to get what they need and to be able to take action a lot
Hmm.
quicker.
And don't you find that it's people can access you easier
Hmm.
when things are virtual? Like, I
Yeah, yeah,
understand
yeah.
you saying the transformation is bigger in person. I get that, but
Hmm.
you have a wider reach when it
Wider reach.
comes to
Absolutely.
being virtual and this whole social media thing that
Yeah,
we're all
yeah.
a part of, whether we want to be or not.
I think another thing I'll add too, that being able to host dedicated sessions on whatever the topic is, so whether it's home ownership or it's on credit or if it's on money management, um, people are able to relate to me because I keep it 100. Like, I'm no money master, but I've learned through being in the industry, and that's what I'm imparting on you, right?
Right.
I've learned through my education, that's what I'm imparting on you. And so, because I keep it 100, I keep it real, I speak to you in layman's terms because there's a lot of, jargon that people don't understand. And when they don't
Right.
understand, they don't take action. I just speak to you in like a regular, having a regular conversation, right? And make it digestible, and therefore it's easier for you to take action on.
Awesome. So what recent changes in the mortgage industry should potential home buyers be aware of?
So there's lots of changes that have been, the government has been trying to backpedal on and help people after they've hurt the market, but I digress. That's not what we're talking about. Things like extending amortization, meaning
Yes.
that when you extend your payments over a longer period of time, it brings down the payment, which makes it a little bit more affordable, which also allows you to have a bigger budget, right? Their first timers is has I would say is the market that has been impacted the most over the last few years with housing prices increasing the way it has. So the entry level has been, skyrocketed, so it make it harder to get in.
Hmm.
So they've implemented some further incentives to help first timers who are buying like new construction and condos, you know, yeah. There's also like programs that have already been in play that they're just kind of adding onto. But for me, it's always about affordability. So, they can make as many changes as they want, but if it doesn't relate to your current financial situation, meaning I want you to buy a home, but if on paper, right, it looks like you can afford to get into a home, but in reality, aside from what it would take to finance or cover the finances of the home, I want you to take a consideration into all of your finances, not just what it's going to cost to buy in the home. Yes, your amortization will be extended. You could save $300 a month, but do you actually have $300 a month to pay that extra, to pay that mortgage is what I try to have the conversation with clients about. So the government, as I said, does do things that are supposed to entice people to get into the market, but I always encourage you to do a full financial audit of your own finances before you even consider that.
Okay. And how do you, as a mortgage broker, stay updated with the industry trends? And how do you incorporate this knowledge into your clients' interactions?
Social media has been a blessing. A lot of times, because I don't really watch news, but when the government makes announcements stuff like that, we do get the added information through the agencies that we're listed with. But social media has definitely done um, a great job in getting information across the network and the community. But how do I implement it? It's personal, because one change or one um, new opportunity in the market is not applicable to all people. So it's really about having those one-on-one conversations. But in terms of sharing the information, I do use my social, but I do also send emails, and I also get on the phone and say, hey, remember when we spoke 6 months ago and you were, not quite ready? Well, this is in place. So can we revisit and see if this is something that is beneficial to you?
All right. So, future. What are your future plans for the Mortgages for Moms? And are there any upcoming projects or incentives or initiatives, excuse me, that you're
hmm
excited about?
Yeah. So in the future, my heart for Mortgages for Moms is to actually be a financing solution for the mom community that I serve. There's, many other communities have access to government funding and government programs that help them move them ahead, but the mom community doesn't have that. And so my goal is to either facilitate that through my own riches, or find resources in which I can make that happen for moms, because sometimes they have the ambition, they have the solid job, but they have a lot of responsibilities, and they just need that little support that will help them, that can skyrocket them. So that's the future goal for Mortgages for Moms. um, and coming up, what I like to do again is to really support moms along the journey. I've talked to hundreds of moms who aspire to be homeowners, but they have a lot of work to do, a lot of work to repair what they've, their finances, because of, life, right? And also, again, the lack of education, and now having to kind of clean up the mess, so to speak. So I try to do a lot of educational, again, workshops, but courses, like hands-on, so I'm actually working with you about your situation, and you're doing the work, and I'm holding you accountable. So I am going to officially launch my a digital course, a financial bootcamp digital course, in the coming weeks, where you have access to me, but also to know exactly what you need to do in order to restore your finances, that will move you to the next step towards homeownership.
Oh, right. That's good. That's a lot. You're busy, busy.
Super busy.
So, okay, so what key pieces of advice would you offer to mothers who are considering purchasing their first home? And second
Mhm.
question, how can potential home buyers prepare themselves financially and mentally for the mortgage
Mm,
application process?
that's a good question. Um, have a conversation with a professional, right? Although I said, social media has done a great job in getting the information across to people, but general information won't necessarily be the information that will help you to move you to your next step. So book an appointment. It's free to have a conversation with me. It's free to, sorry, um, speak to another mortgage professional,
Mhm.
because knowing your numbers, right, is going to define whether it is possible for you, or if it's not, or even when it is possible for you. So I think that would be the first thing. Understanding that the application process, when you are preparing to submit an application, well, you'd have a conversation with myself. I'm going to speak to you, and I'm going to prepare you based off what I know the lender is looking for, right? And so the key thing is making sure that you're making enough money, because affordability, again, is um, not talked about enough, right? The idea of homeownership is fabulous, investing in real estate so you can build generational wealth. But if you can't afford it, then we have a problem. So I would think the first thing that you should focus on is making more money. Making more money. It's unfortunate, but that's I think that's the big ticket thing that people should have top
Mhm.
of mind. Because of course everything is increasing, right? Not only just the home pricing, like lifestyle is
Absolutely.
increasing, right? So making sure that you're not just buying or investing in a lateral type of investing. So moving from the lifestyle that you're currently living in into a home that will be much more expensive. So if your income is not also increasing, then you might find yourself stuck, right? So focus on making as much money as you possibly can.
Also, could you speak on for the listeners, when you
Hmm.
say make more money, doesn't mean to go out and go get another job. That's not going to help when it comes to make more money. I'm sure that's not what you mean. But if you could just speak on different streams of income, let's say, that is
Yeah,
possible for us mothers out there.
yes. So I would say if you are currently employed, absolutely maximize your earning income potential because you're spending a lot of your time there, right? So do whatever you can to increase your salary. Do whatever you can to upgrade yourself so that you can earn more money. But outside of your job, I'm an advocate for entrepreneurship, and I understand that not everybody is fit to be a full-time entrepreneur. But you know what everybody can do? Make some extra money on the side of their job, right? So a lot of us have talents, a lot of us have gifts, a lot of us have hobbies that we use our time to, to spend doing. There's a way you can capitalize on that, right? And all of us are online, right? Yeah, and I'll be bold enough to say all of us are online at some point or another, and a lot of us are spending time online, scrolling and making other people money. So if you are in a space where you know you need to make more money, you definitely have to figure out a way where you can find your own little space online to make some extra money. Business is open to everybody, right? And there's different ways that you can start business. As I said, it could be a little side hustle if you bake or you babysit, whatever it is. Um, Open up the idea to making extra funds, because that's the cheat code to wealth business. Getting
Yeah,
a second job, which a lot of people do, there's only 24 hours in the day, and especially if you have children, that takes away from your time with your children, right? And other things. But also, you know what that does? That makes you pay more taxes. A lot of clients that I meet that have two jobs because they need the extra money, they end up owing the government at the end of the year, right? And yeah, they're like, oh, you can deduct more taxes. But if you deduct more taxes, then that money, that the time that they're going out to work that second job doesn't equate to the dollars that they need. So it's like a vicious cycle. So of course, if you have a second job and because you need to, I get it, but there has to be another way. And so I would say open up your mind to contract work or, um, I've done multi-level marketing. Like there's so many other ways that you can make extra money that will save you in taxes and also bring you more money and income in the greater picture.
yeah, and I would add to that, we all have skills. We all have something that we're good at. And
Mm-hmm.
so you need to figure out what that is and leverage
Mm-hmm.
that
Absolutely.
because it could be used, like you said, even if it's baking,
Yep.
right? You could leverage your baking skills to make to build a little side hustle and
Absolutely.
increase your income through different streams and not just getting another job.
Yeah. And for some, an extra $500 will make a world of difference. So think about
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Yes.
one last thing before I let you go. I'd like you to
Hmm.
tell the listeners a little bit about the Circle of Black Girl CEOs.
Ooh, Circle of Black Girl CEOs is my newest project, newest business venture. My partner Hazel Williams and I met through my own podcast, the Mama Means Business podcast, a little almost 2 years ago, and we literally connected. We hit it off. We had a lot of similar belief systems, morals, and so we became business besties. And through our own accountability we started just sharing online about what we were doing, and it was received well. Like, women were reaching out. I was like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that. So we officially launched in January of 2025, the Circle of Black Girl CEOs. And it's really a space where women, Black entrepreneur women, come together to be held accountable to their business goals. I believe that the difference between a super successful entrepreneur and one who's not so successful is the activity that they do, the activity they commit to. And so, because we wear so many hats, because we carry so many roles, because we're doing so many things, a lot of us are solopreneurs and are doing everything, things tend to get pushed to the side. But if you come together every single week with your sisterhood, your community, and you said you're going to do this, and you come back next week and you don't do it, you're not going to be too happy, right? And we're going to support you. We're going to encourage you. And some people say push you, but we do it with love, right? The only way to move to the next level is to hold yourself accountable. And sometimes you can't do that by yourself, but you can do that amongst a community. So that's what the Circle of Black Girl CEOs, we're here to hold you accountable. We're here to grow together. We're here to make more money together. And we're just here to overall just become, the best and the most profitable business owners that we can be. So yes,
And I would
that's the
add
Circle
that
of
it's
Black
a
Girl.
great circle of Black girl CEOs. They're great women. I'm a part of that group, for you who
Yes.
are listening. So it's awesome. So check it out on Instagram and
Hmm.
or Facebook, and you can find
Yes.
the Circle of Black Girl CEOs. It's a really good group. So check it out for you
Yes.
Black CEO women out there.
Yes.
Well,
On our
thank
website
you.
too. Circle of Black
Circle
Girl
of Black Girls.
CEOs.com.
Com. Okay, there we go. All the information is
Thank
there.
you.
Thank you
Yes.
so much, Siobhan. I
Thank you for
appreciate.
having me, Michelle.
Yes, I appreciate. This was awesome, and you really gave me and my listeners some good insight into the whole mortgage thing. And thank you for
Yes.
clearing up the good debt, bad debt thing, because that was a
Hmm.
question that I personally had. I wanted to know,
Hmm.
what that was about. So thank you for clearing that up, and I really
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.
Thank you for
Awesome.
listening, everyone, to this episode of Let's Talk Mindset, and we'll see you again in our next episode.